Hi, it's me, Ingrid INFP, and we're going to be making a Korean bibimbap. It looks like this, which is going to be with beef and ginger vegetables. So if we place you guys here, so here we have all of the vegetables. So we've got garlic, we've got ginger, we've got sriracha sauce, we've got soy sauce, we've got white vinegar, jasmine rice, meat. In Sweden we have the meat in like rolls like this. Then we've got this green onion leek thing. Not a leek. I always say this leek, but it's not leek. Then we've got pak choi. Oh, sorry, it's still wet. I washed the vegetables here. 2 carrots and a bunch of mushrooms, just like regular of these kinds of mushrooms. The step number 1 is to cook the rice. So it says to fill this with water. Okay. There. So we're cooking the water, and then we're going to put in the rice and the salt once it's cooked. And then we're going to take it away. So it says to put it under a cover for about 12 minutes. During this time, oh, actually I haven't washed my vegetable thingy, but I'm using the other side of it, I guess. We're gonna have to deal. And I'm going to move you guys to another spot. So here you are. So we're going to be making the vegetables. So it says to put these into small thin pieces. So that's going to take us a while. These mushrooms are so tiny, so that's what we're doing while we're waiting for the water to boil. So I'm going to talk about a book that I have read, which is called Living Disability. I'll have the author and everything in the description box below. But it was a really good book to learn about disability, and if you're like a newbie like me, I mean, like, I just recently got diagnosed with autism, but I don't have any other disabilities that I know of, at least. One such important piece of information is something that most able-bodied, most able people won't think about, is that there is a big risk of us becoming disabled later in life. So a lot of us become disabled at some point. It's just the question of when, pretty much. So, when we get old, I think that it was interesting talking about, like, the fact that, for example, some interabled relationships, what is an interabled relationship? Like, it's where one or both of the parties are disabled in some way, but they might be disabled in different ways. And also sometimes a perfectly able relationship might become an interabled relationship if one of the members of this relationship ends up disabled in some way later, once the relationship is formed. So I thought that was interesting, because, like, we rarely think of, like, older couples as being a disabled couple. And I don't know, it seems like more okay to be disabled when you're old for some reason, when really like some people are disabled when they're not. And there was one, it's made out of testimonials of different people, and it's put together by Emily Macrae. And I found that it was interesting, all these different testimonials. There was somebody who was quite young and who had to use adult diapers, which was like really embarrassing for them, and also a really big cost, because being disabled costs a lot of money. So I thought that was interesting. They talked about like the disability tax. They also talked about the traffic sounds for blind people, that they weren't really accessible in the places that these people were talking. I do wish that this book was a little bit less focused on Canada, because I don't live in Canada, and so it doesn't really interest me too much, like, what the system is right now in Canada. I am interested in like the ideas that are being put out, and also like, okay, now the water is boiling, so let's see, we're going to put the rice in. Okay, we're pouring the rice in, and then we're also adding salt, and then we're putting a cover onto this. Voila. And then we're putting the cover on, and then we're turning the heat a little bit lower. Okay, good. So Living Disability has testimonials from disabled people of all genders and sexual orientations, and ethnic minorities as well. And I found that to be really interesting, how, intersectionality, and how there are even divides within the disability community, which, is regrettable, but it's the reality of the situation, and how we need to go together to have our rights heard, And there's such a lack of representation, and so little acknowledgement for ableism. There's so much like talk about sexism and racism, and but there's not much talk about ableism in our society. So it was interesting. They talked to many different people. There was somebody who was a Paralympian, and like sports and disability, and how there's less access to sports. There's also less access to transportation. And I didn't know how wheelchairs get affected by rain and snow and stuff, but that is a big problem. And also, it's not very easy to replace wheelchairs, so I found that to be pretty interesting. That there's such a discussion of like how wheelchair users are cyborgs somehow, but they really are not, because it's like a part of them might be dysfunctional, like their wheelchair, which are basically their legs, become dysfunctional, and like it's just a matter of time before the wheelchair falls apart. That's like a huge stress to be under. There was this one person who it took him 4 years before he could get a replacement for his electric wheelchair. So that's not good. It's also the whole thing of the lack of disability benefits if you're married. If you earn a certain wage, you suddenly don't qualify for benefits, which I'd heard of before. I don't think that is the case here in Sweden, but I'm unsure of that. I should look that up. But yeah, I don't know enough about disability, and it talks about the disability culture. There was an indigenous woman, I think, who had learned American Sign Language, but she didn't feel comfortable with using that, but it was the best language that was accessible to her, but she didn't want to use the language of, the colonizer, which I totally get. Many different ways of communicating. I thought that was interesting. There were some of the testimonials were more humorous than others. It was just depending on the person's personality. So I thought also it was interesting that one of the best quotes, I'm paraphrasing, I'm not quoting directly, but it was that you don't need to have the solution in order to complain about the problems. I think that is quite valuable advice, because maybe somebody else might have the solution to this, and if you don't come up with the problems unless you have the solution, then you might have to wait a long time. Anyway, so we've done all that. Now I totally forgot how much time has been passing about this. Sorry. But I'm guessing that it's because it's 11 minutes has gone total, maybe around 8 minutes. So maybe in a few minutes we're going to turn off the rice. Okay, so we're cutting this one into thin pieces, and then we want to. Oh, they want us to make the carrots into tiny slices. Okay, so I'm taking off all of these strings from this spring onion. I don't know why it's called spring onion. Does it bloom in spring? Okay. So, and then there was this whole discussion of disabled people dating and being in relationships. That's difficult, and not having anybody to provide for you. Also, a lot of disabled people who are homeless, and I do get this sense in the autistic community as well, the amount of people who are really struggling with money is insane. And I'm spreading out my Ko-fi donations pretty thin at the moment, but I want to give more out to the community because I actually earn money. It's just that there are so many people I want to donate to, and I don't know, it's hard for me to prioritize, which is part of, ironically, it's part of my executive dysfunction with autism. But okay, I don't know how much of these leaves we can eat, but I'm just cutting them all up. It doesn't really matter. There was somebody in the book who also talked about her difficulties with her mental health, and how the town that she lives in could be more accommodated to her needs, which reminded me of a problem that I faced during Pride, which is things that are good for homeless people are also good for disabled people. Oh, sorry, I'm just eating this. Is that I went to an open air concert, and the thing is, I couldn't get myself home. Then somebody wrote in my comments that oh, but that was silly, basically, that you didn't bring the coats with you, that was, well, you didn't plan that out, did you? And I was like, no, I didn't plan that out. But I would have appreciated if there was a covered area that was calmer that I could escape to if something happened like this. And it didn't really. Okay. They want us to use a potato peeler to like peel this into big pieces. And we'll see how this goes, really. I'm not sure. I'm not sure about this, but we're going to see. I think that we're just going to, they want us to like go back and forth like this, you know. This is working surprisingly okay. But I think that I might be doing this in an unsafe manner. Maybe they want this to be so thin, like not possible for me, but okay. This carrot is too big. Okay. We're just going to see how this goes. Okay. Anyway, I think that the book was really good. It really provided with a lot of varied insights. I will say though, too much based on Canada. I wish that there was a little bit better, you know, just talking about different experiences in different countries. And then also, I did not really appreciate that, like, it didn't go far enough when it talked about, like, work opportunities for disabled people. They were basically just saying, like, oh, we should make this more accessible. We should make work more accessible. And one of the things they said was that, oh, we could make work and home more like integrated into each other. And I got scary like Google vibes of like, you know, how Google employees, like their whole life is at their office because their home is at their office and everything is at their office, which is, you know, not giving me great vibes. Also, another thing is that they didn't go far enough in talking about, you know, socialism or like community organizing or whatever. They talked a little bit about that, but the fact is that they talked about jobs, and this job that was really inaccessible, I mean, and it was like basically telling people that, you know, they should be able to bike around and, you know, do this courier work for people. And it's like, they didn't even talk about universal basic income, which I would say is like pretty important to like talk about, especially when they talk about, you know, how so many people are poor within the disabled community. I felt like that was something that was missing in this whole discussion. Like, they talk about the disability benefits, but they don't talk about how, you know, we should be able to have some basic income regardless of how productive we are to society. I think that was something that was lacking. I mean, obviously she can't talk about every single political idea, but I think that is such a core idea for a lot of people that was missing. Okay, let's see about the rice. Oof. I think that we should turn the thing off, because I think that it's been 12 minutes. Now we need to keep it under the lock for 10 minutes while I keep doing this. So that was that book, Living Disability by Emily Macrae, except that it's just like different interviews with different people. And there was, it did talk about queer spaces and how that was inaccessible as well. I think that was also interesting. Because I've made a video talking about that, actually. So, and then there's another book that I've read that is called Anibot, which is, it's an interesting book. I can't really explain it. Okay, I don't know. I'm just making a mess here. But Anibot is, it's a book that's pretty popular nowadays. I don't know if the hype has gone or if I'm too late to the party or what it is. But Annie is a bot, right, a robot, who's owned by her. She's an artificial boyfriend, a girlfriend to this guy. This guy is really rich and he has bought himself a bot to basically act as a girlfriend, and she does all of the chores for him and also has sex with him whenever he wants, which is ideal for him, right? And also he has programmed her, like, through his interactions with her, he can like program her to become exactly what he wants. And I think that what is really clever about the book is that it progresses and you can follow her progression and how complex her thoughts are from the book. You can only figure that out after you've read the whole book, but it is really interesting to see. You start seeing how her emotions become more and more complex as time goes on, as she gains experiences. And she is very human for a robot, you know? So she reads like a real human, you know? She is very sensitive to the displeasure of her owner. Like, she has these settings of like she can set her libido and stuff, you know, and she can also, you know, technically she can't experience pleasure herself, but she does experience like deep emotions. But she's always like denigrated because she's a robot, right? And she is really emotionally attuned to him, right? Because she is a bot that is created for his desires. And yeah, there's quite some terrible stuff, which is basically like how an emotionally abusive relationship would work, because there's so much that is based in power dynamics. And she starts, I'm not going to spoil too much, but you know, she starts understanding that she is being abused, basically. And you know, he basically isolates her from the world, and she needs this information in order to grow as a bot, but like kind of as a person. She has to get outside information. Sometimes he will allow her different things, but the way that he allows it makes it performative, almost. Like she has to give him reactions that will make him value her, basically. And sometimes he treats her like shit. Sometimes he will allow her a little bit of freedom and agency, apparently, but it really isn't agency, because yeah, it's not agency if you are owned by somebody else, you know? So she is owned, she has an owner, and he controls everything in her life, and he has the ultimate power in the end. So that really sucks. I don't think that is, you know. And also he really, in a way, he really like appreciates her like a human. Like he really wants her to, you know, become more real, become less like a robot. But then he keeps, you know, putting her down because she is a robot. And then he hides the fact that she is a robot to everybody else in his life. Then when she starts acting not exactly the way that he wants her to, then he revokes privileges to her and stuff like that, and he starts acting really shitty. Which, you know, you don't have to be a robot to be like treated shittily by some men, especially men with a lot of power, like this guy apparently. Also, there's a lot of implications that, you know, he had a previous relationship with a real human girl, you know, and that did not turn out great. And how he made Annie kind of look like his old girlfriend. And yeah, it's really interesting. She talks about how, Annie talks about how being a protagonist, like the humans will see themselves as protagonists in their own story, but for her, she would always be just a sidekick pretty much, like, because she was created for this purpose. And yeah, you start feeling a lot for Annie. And it's like, is it okay to feel this way for Annie? Like, because she is a robot. Also, I do feel like she is at times more human than the humans, you know? Which is kind of like how Ex Machina and Blade Runner is. I found it to be really, really eye-opening. Okay, sorry, it was taking me ages with the carrots, so we're just moving on to something else, which is we are putting the spring onion in here, and then we're adding the white vinegar, and then we're going to put some salt, and this is basically just going to be put to the side. And somehow I can't open this, so I'm going to have to use the big knife. Oh no, I can't use the big knife. Where's my scissors? Come on. I don't want to open this. Oh, God. It says open here, and then it's like impossible to open from there. So I'm going to see, where do we have my little knife? There's my little knife. Okay. Oof. Oh, that was spraying all over the place. Okay. So here's the vinegar, which we're adding into there. So yeah, Annie Boss made me think a lot. Also, you know, a lot of robots are, you know, autistic coded, kind of. And she gets into misunderstandings with this guy who owns her all the time, which, relatable, let's just say. The thing that is a little bit off-putting though is the fact that, I'm trying to find a mitten thing, is that she speaks one sentence of French in the whole book, and it's not even good French. That kind of, my suspension of disbelief really, really left the room at that point. Okay, so there's the rice. I'm going to pour it a little bit into the drain. Ooh. Okay, good. Let's see how much drainage we can get out of this. We're just pouring a little bit of the excess here. I'm trying to just get rid of that. Okay, great. This is what the rice looks like. Pretty good, I would say, if I say so myself. Okay, what's going on here now? Oh yes, we also need to fix this, the ginger, and the spring, these garlic onions. Thing is, I don't have ketchup, which really sucks, because this apparently needs ketchup. But so we're going to make it without ketchup. And for that, we need another little bowl, which will just have the soy sauce and the sriracha. They said don't put the whole sriracha in if you are, and yeah, I'm not going to put the whole in because, oh no, why are these so difficult to open? Okay, so I do like soy sauce though, so I'm going to put all the soy sauce. I'm guessing though that maybe they want us to put something a little bit tomatoey and something a little bit sugary in here. So I'm just going to put a little bit of this in, and then we're going to put a little bit of sugar in instead of the ketchup. Because I'm guessing that's why they didn't give us tomato. Okay, that's it. No more sriracha because it is too spicy. Okay, now sugar. I don't know how much sugar to add, but I'm going to add something at least because I think I added too much of this hot sauce. That's a good amount of sugar. Yeah, let's put that in. That much sugar, and then we're going to add a little bit of a teeny bit of some like tomato sauce that I have from before. There. I'm hoping that this is okay. This is really just experimental, but quite okay. I'm fine with that. Okay, so that was that sauce. So we've got the vinegar with the thingy. We've put those to the side. They tell us to use olive oil. We don't have olive oil. We have rapeseed oil. Because then they want us to put all the stuff into the pan. But they say to start with the carrots and the mushrooms. So we're going to do that. Okay, here we're back, and we're just putting this here in the pan, and now we're adding all of this in somehow. I don't know if there's space for everything, but we're just going to try. My pan isn't big enough for all this. I think I got a little bit too crazy on the carrots. But so anyway, what is also interesting about Annie Bot is that she, oh, I have way too much here. Okay. I'll just put it all in. I don't know. What do you want me to do? So we can take away some of the peelings that are just the peelings. There. So Annie is not the only robot in this world, so I find it interesting, like the whole politics of all that. Obviously, Annie is not like aware of all the politics that are happening, so it is interesting to like figure out at the same time as she's figuring out. But she does have some pre-knowledge, obviously, because she's a bot herself. But she knows about a new line of like she's like the best programmed out of all these robots, and so they're planning on making a new line of robots that use her memories and her her programming, except that they'll erase a part of her memories in those other clones of her, basically. So I found that to be a really interesting concept, because like there's the possibility that they could return her to an earlier version of herself, which really terrifies her, right? Because like she doesn't want to lose her memories. But yeah, so that is, you know, the concept of like, you know, regrets and relationships and stuff like that, and human ones as well. So I found that to be really interesting. Let's see, so we're doing that. It says 3 to 5 minutes or till they're like soft, and then we're going to deal with the pak choi and the ginger and all that. So we're just I'm just cutting up this pak choi into pieces here. I don't usually like such big pieces, so I'm trying to like, but I know they get softer once they go into the pan. I'm just like unused to the working with this. Anyway, I'm eating while I'm doing this because that's what you do when you cook, right? But okay, because I have to actually work fast now. So anyway, a part of this is also that Anibot can be programmed into different like characters, and it's basically like the female characters that you know, so she could be programmed as a cuddle bunny, which is what she is, or she can be programmed to be basically a nanny. She could be programmed to be what's it called? Abigail is what they call basically like the housewife character. So yeah, it's like either you're like either or. You can't be anything else. If you're a woman, that's like what's men want in your life. And yeah, he treats her really shit, like really badly. Okay, I don't know what to do. I can't find my little grater, so I'll just have to deal with this right now. I think that it's maybe time to add the different vegetables before everything else falls apart. Don't they say just to put some kind of salt in here? Oh no, they want us to put this into this for the last minute, so we're just going to put this in. Unfortunately, I still have to do a lot of the garlic, which is taking me ages, so we're going to have to work fast here. And yeah, I wish sometimes that I were an Anibot so I could like do all of my chores like good little robots, and unfortunately I am just a human, and an autistic human at that, which means that I have a hard time doing basic menial tasks. So yeah, but isn't it problematic to want to be a robot? You know, in this capitalist world that we live in, it's like, you know, are we gonna get replaced by robots? I hope not, but you know, that possibility isn't as much of a science fiction anymore compared to how it was a few years ago. So yeah, I'm not particularly, you know, I don't really know where my stance is anymore on the AI stuff, but I am pretty anti still. I can see how it can be useful to certain people sometimes, but I don't see AI like being freely available to all as it has been now. I think that it will be put behind a paywall like everything else, which is even worse, but I don't want to come to rely on it because, yeah, everything can be taken away. You know, just like how Google used to be it used to be good to Google things. You could find all kinds of information on there, but now it's everything is replaced by AI. I can't Google anymore. It just hurts me physically to find the AI. You know, I'm at my work and I Google something and the first thing that comes up is AI, and I find I can't stand that. I just, you know, it's like, oh Ingrid, why were you Googling in the first place? Aren't you a doctor? Like, yeah, I'm Googling because it's like looking inside a book for information. AI isn't like looking inside a book for information. It's like, hello, here's the answer. And it's like, no, that's not the answer. Actually, your answer is wrong. I know that your answer is wrong. But looking for the actual site is now so much more complicated. So, yeah, I'm tired. I'm tired. That's basically the point of this. But, you know, I'm not totally anti-AI. It's just like, I find like, okay, is it going to be intelligent or not? You know? If it's going to be intelligent, we need to use it to do the menial tasks that I can't deal with doing, instead of making it do stuff that I would like to do myself. Thank you very much. So, you know, I would like to explore myself, my passions and stuff on my own without the AI. And I would like the AI to please clean my dishes. And the AI is not going to help me with cleaning my dishes. It's going to just help me, you know, it's going to just tell me which are the best washing machines. And it's like, yeah, but you're not actually helping me with the tasks. So why do you exist, you know? Okay, I think I need to turn down the heat even more here for that. Now we're going to add some of the garlic. Sorry for going on a rant. It's just like, I do get passionate about that, because it's like, I go on Tumblr, and at least on Tumblr, people are like actually having normal opinions about AI compared to like people everywhere else. I mean, I don't know what a normal opinion is, but I'm just saying like people are actually, you know, treating it as kind of alarming. And it's like, I'm not trying to be ableist when I'm talking about AI. I'm saying like, you know, I think that conscious consumption is very difficult under capitalism. And I don't trust myself even with that. So, yeah. Anyway, and then we've got this whole of Annie Bots. You know, is she actually feeling things? Well, she is thinking things, but is she actually feeling them? And it is a little bit confusing because it says at the beginning of the book that she doesn't feel heat or cold, but then she talks about how she feels a heat inside her body and she can regulate her own body temperature. I don't know. I think that wasn't really well thought out by the author. Anyway. Okay, I couldn't find my grater, so we're just going to be using the potato peeler again to just like peel up some stuff. This is a really big clove of ginger, I guess it's called. I mean, it's clove of garlic. I don't know if it's clove of ginger. Anyway, there we go. It's so hard to make these videos short because like it takes me ages to make this. But at least we're trying. Okay, we went to put the salt on. It is so sad how the carrots just get so destroyed by being under heat for such a long time. Now, okay, we put some pepper in. Now we're going to put some more garlic in. Oh, it's hard to put because it's so soft. Okay. This wasn't ideal either, but okay. We did what we could. We might put some of it afterwards, later on. Okay. And then it says that we should put it into a bowl and then cover the bowl. And then we're going to add and do just the meat. Okay, so I put the vegetables to the side in here, and then I put the meat. You missed me squeezing the meat in there, which I don't think that you really wanted to see. Anyway, we'll put the heat up, and I put some olive oil, or rapeseed oil, back into the pan, and hopefully it won't stick. So we're putting there in that, and they say to put salt and pepper and do this in 4 or 5 minutes. There we put the salt and pepper. Yeah. Oops. It's really hard with my pepper. Oh, there we go. We're just going to spread the pepper around because otherwise it's going to be a hell to eat. Okay. There we go. We let that do. And then it says we take it off the heat and then we add all of the stuff in there. And then we add, so we add the vegetables and then we add the sauce and then we add more salt and pepper. And then we add the onion and then we put the rice and that's it. Okay, so we're letting that happen. We're going to squish this in. So anyway, so I really liked Honey Pot. I really liked Living Disability. The book, not the experience of it. But they talked a little bit about disability culture and stuff, like, you know, finding community and all that, which is very important. And I can attest to that with discovering the autism community online. That has been really helpful for me. Anyway, so these books, I've rated them both 5 out of 5, actually. It's not often that I do that, but I think that despite some of the flaws, I think that it was really good. I also have been reading Do Ask, Do Tell, and it's by Stu and Lotte, and I forget their last names. Lotte is a lesbian woman, but I don't know if she's non-binary or whatever. And then there was, she identifies at a certain point at the beginning, and then she identifies as something else maybe at the end. We're not sure. And then Stu is just a gay man, and he's like learning about other ways of being queer. And it was interesting because it was like basically like all the questions that you've always wanted to ask but never could, and going curiously into, you know, with curiosity into these environments. I think that's, you know, it's so often that we just like say, oh, that's wrong, you know, and it's like, then we never learn because we're never accepting other ideas. So I think that that was a really good book. They explained a few terms for me, explained about like what is the appeal of drag, what is the appeal of, you know, they talk about pretty dark stuff. They literally talk about dark rooms, and they talk about why gay men feel this need to classify themselves as like twinks and bears and stuff like that, and, you know, looking for each label means something different to each person. And I think that that was really the big point of that. And I also found that there was this one quote by M.J. Barker, I think is what she said, and it was, we are all queered by life in some way. Nobody can live to the cis het norms of society. We might, get divorced or like have some other trouble or something will happen, and we will get queered by life. And then so Lotte says, oh, so if we're all queered by life, then queer people, we are living, that means that we queer people know how to live. Which, I don't know, it felt so validating when she said that. I was like, oh, I'm listening to this on audiobook, so that's why I say she said that. I was like, oh, I'm not messed up. Being queer is not about being messed up. It is about subverting things. But it's not about how I am broken. And it's hard sometimes, like I am, queer and proud of it, but I'm not like out to everybody, and I know that, I can't be loud and proud about this everywhere. And yet, like straight people just never have to think about these questions, which is galling, let's just say. I also found it interesting where, she talks about, kind of taboo topics. She talks about sex work, and she talks about, drugs, and she talks about how AIDS, was such a scary thing, but now there is treatment, and it doesn't need to be a scary shadow over the community anymore. And then they talk about this retirement home for LGBTQ elders, and I do want to say, like, anytime I talk to a queer elder, I don't know if queer would be the word that they would use, if they would use gay or something else, because, the words that we use for ourselves are also very different depending on when and where we grew up and what words were used against us and stuff like that. But LGBTQ elders are just such an inspiration for the community. And it really, it makes me emotional, like I'm a part of this history, and these people are still alive, Obviously, due to the AIDS crisis epidemic, like a lot of the queer elders are dead and gone. So, let's see, we have to put all this in here together somehow. And we put the vegetables in there, and then the sauce. And I'm so impressed by all queer people, but especially the older queer people, So much of our, the elderly community is about, like, straight people. And it's like, okay, what about gay people once we get old? They talk a little bit also about, like, beauty standards and how, it's hard to age as a queer person because of that. And, there's also this whole youth, like, wanting to reclaim our youth due to having to be stressed out about our lives all the time. And that can lead to a lot of, like, hedonism and partying and stuff like that, which is good, but it also can lead to disastrous consequences if it goes overboard. So, okay, we've put all of that in there. We put salt and pepper again into this. Okay, we don't need the fan anymore. Okay, there we put the pepper in. Okay, it smells a lot like pepper now. All right, and then they say to put the rice into a bowl, and then we're going to put the salad Okay, I'm just going to put some of the rice in this bowl. The rice is kind of sticky. It wasn't maybe my best rice, but okay. We're going to put some of the this in there. Vinegar. Okay, good. And then we put some of this in there. There we go. We have way too much vegetables. Okay, we need some more rice to for that. Okay, good. Okay, here we go. We have to do some cleaning up now. Okay, so this is what it looks like. And this is the vegetables with the meat, and there's the rice. And let's see. Does it look like it? I guess. I don't know. It's not as aesthetic, but still. So that's what I had to say about these books. I'm going to be eating this up now, and I've actually tried a bite, which is good. I might go into more detail about some of these books in some later video, but I think I got into quite a lot of detail. I recommend all 3 of those books. I would put a 5 stars on all of them. So yeah, have a great day, everybody. Bye.